They're finally here. The 2021 Stanley Cup Playoffs are about to begin, and nothing about this season has been typical. There have been weird circumstances. It was a 56-game season, but now is where the normal begins, really. 16 teams remain, and you got to get through 4 rounds of playoff hockey to be crowned the champion. You know me, I like to go nuts with the jump cuts, but I've already shot this video once and had to delete the entire thing, so we're going to try to do one take per series. Oh, and we're going to go all the way through the playoffs. Blink and you'll miss it. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. The first series we got, the Colorado Avalanche taking on the St. Louis Blues. Right now, producer Drew, like, you better answer right. Well, I'm going to. Listen, the St. Louis Blues went through their ups and downs. They actually went into their final 10 games pretty decently. 6-1-3 in their final 10. However, the Colorado Avalanche, 8-2-0 in their final 10, and they won 5 straight, and did that largely without Nathan MacKinnon. Now, injuries are a little bit of a concern, and who's at 100%, who's not. But let's be honest here. The Avalanche won the President's Trophy, and the St. Louis Blues are one of just 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Playoffs who do not have a positive goal differential. They're a -1. The Avs are a +64. I have the Avs winning in 6. I'm giving the Blues 2 games because, well, they won the Cup a couple years ago. Our next series just proves how important one regular season game is. The Avalanche end up beating the LA Kings to not just win the President's Trophy, but they get the St. Louis Blues in round 1 instead of the Minnesota Wild, who are 12 points up on the Blues. Now it's the Vegas Golden Knights who, instead of winning the President's Trophy, end up as the 2 seed in their own division, and they have to take on the Wild. We all know the story with the Wild. They're fun now. They're exciting now. Kirill Kaprizov is amazing, but there is something to be said about experience, and all Vegas has done since entering the league is playoff experience after playoff experience. It seems like they've been through absolutely everything except winning it all. I have them beating the Wild, but I think the Wild are going to take a chunk out of them. I give it to Vegas in 6. Up next, we go to the East, and we have a tale of 2 extraordinarily different teams, especially in how they went into the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Pittsburgh Penguins, one of the hottest teams in the league, 8-2-0. Jeff Carter, turning back the clock, hot as a pistol. And here's the stat for you. Every single team who has ever traded for Jeff Carter at the trade deadline went on to win the Stanley Cup. The LA Kings, that is the end of the list. Columbus did get him, but they got him too early. That was the mistake that they made. Listen, the Islanders were under 500 in their final 10 games. And even though they're one of the best defensive teams, you got to take that into account. Barzal was a scratch. It was a bit of a mess down the stretch. Pittsburgh is going to beat them, but the playoffs are a different animal from the regular season. The Isles are going to give them a fight. I say the Penguins in 6. Yeah, I know they've all been in 6 so far. It's the coward's way out. Be quiet. The second Eastern series, we have the Boston Bruins taking on the Washington Capitals. And a little spoiler alert for you, this one is not going to be 6 games. And listen, this is a dream come true for anyone who's had to play the Bruins over the past decade plus in the playoffs, because it's Brad Marchand taking on Zdeno Chara in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Santa, I've been a good boy. I've been such a good boy. Just let this go 7 games. And you know what? Heading into this, you look at the Bruins, you look at the Caps, you know their identity, you know it's going to be a war between the two. Doesn't that make the 2-game series between the Capitals and the Rangers seem dumb from a Capitals perspective? Wasting all that energy, that adrenaline dump. Guys are potentially getting injured, and it's already not a very healthy roster. The Capitals had an amazing season. They get a younger Bruins team, but the acquisition of Taylor Hall and how worn down the Capitals are, I give this to the Bruins in 7. In the Central, the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Nashville Predators. Now, the Predators have not been getting any respect this year. Just about a month and a half ago, we were selling off everybody. The Matthias Ekholm sweepstakes never ended up happening. And the Preds have sort of been in this playoff mindset for at least a month now. They've been taking on the Dallas Stars, fighting and clawing for this last spot. And they actually won. They finally got it, albeit by a narrow margin. However, the Carolina Hurricanes, what really is their weakness? They got goaltending depth. They have waves of offense. They have great puck-moving defensemen. Jacob Slavin, one of the most underrated D-men in the league, and one of the best coaches who that entire roster would die for in Rod the Bod. God bless you, Nashville, but Carolina in 5. Finally, the all-Florida matchup. We have the Florida Panthers against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Panthers come into this playoffs as arguably the hottest team in the league. 8-2-0 in their final 10. I think they won their last 6 games, including a game against Tampa where they dominated them. However, you can't go by the regular season in this series at all on account of Tampa. It's not going into the series with their regular season roster. They're getting Stamkos back. They're getting Kucherov back. It almost doesn't seem fair, and I'm sure at least a few GMs are going to complain about the supposed shenanigans that the Lightning had going on this season with LTIR and everything. But the fact of the matter is, it's 2021, the playoffs are starting, and here they are. Although the Panthers might have looked like the better team, and they are the 2 seed, they have home ice advantage here, I just think Tampa's experience and their reinforcements are going to power them through the series. Tampa in 7. And we got our 2 Canadian series. We got the Oilers taking on the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, the Oilers are one of the hottest teams in the entire league heading into this break. Forget the Canadian division. And the Jets have been terrible. They're below 500 since the trade deadline, where they only added Jordy Ben, by the way, and they've been brutal against the Oilers, who happen to have a guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, Connor McDavid, who has just laughed his way through the NHL this season, over 100 points, and he has feasted on the Jets. I'm going to say Hellebuck steals 1 game in this series. Oilers are going to wipe the floor with the Jets in 5. That's my prediction. And our final series, the second in the Canadian division, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens squaring off for the first time since 1979. Listen, it's a bit difficult to predict. The Leafs haven't had their full roster together. The Habs have had a ton of injuries leading into this. We don't know what to expect out of Carey Price. Usually we would expect playoff Price to be up here, but he hasn't played recently. Jack Campbell's an interesting story in Toronto. Here's what it is, all right? You take the season series between these two. Toronto has been better. And you would easily put all your money on the Leafs to beat the Habs in this series if they weren't called the Toronto Maple Leafs. All evidence points to the Leafs being the better team, the favored team in this series. But what is causing so many people who like them, people who hate them, to not believe in them is the fact that they're called the Leafs. Believe me, I have the same problem going on in my head. I have the Leafs winning in 5 because I am stupid and I'm choosing to put my faith in them. If the Leafs win the first game in the series, they should. If the Habs win the first game, I don't know what to tell you, but I gotta pick Leafs in 5. Now we go to round 2. This could easily be the Stanley Cup final. The Colorado Avalanche, who won their series, taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, who won their series. It really is a toss-up. Marc-Andre Fleury's been so good. Grubauer has been so good, but I think if they're all healthy, Colorado has what it takes to overpower and get past Vegas. Couldn't tell you how many games. You know what? For hockey's sake, I hope this goes 7. In the East, we have an all black and gold series. The Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Boston Bruins. You know what? It's so tough to bet against either of these teams. You're betting against Bergeron. You're betting against Crosby. I just think the way that they've powered through this end of the season, the way that they've gotten better as the season has gone on, it's not to take anything away from the Bruins. The Pittsburgh Penguins just look like a wagon right now. I think the Pens end up taking the Bruins in 6. In the Central, the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Man, what? Imagine having to go through the Panthers and the Hurricanes in the first 2 rounds of this year's playoffs. I know Tampa are the defending Stanley Cup champions, but they've played a lot of hockey over the last year. A lot more than anybody else with all these layoffs that we've had. They're going to have such a tough first-round series. Then they're going to come into this one against the Hurricanes. I think this is the year where Carolina finally takes a step and makes it into the Final Four. Carolina's going to beat Tampa. It's not going to be easy. I think the Hurricanes get it done in 6, though. And lastly, the Canadian final, the Edmonton Oilers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know the story. The Maple Leafs had that 3-game series against the Oilers. They held McDavid off the score sheet. They only allowed 1 goal from the Oilers. Draisaitl only had an assist, and that's when the Leafs decided to go all in. What they don't tell you about that is McDavid has been banana sandwich since that happened, and also the Leafs lost 3 straight right after that. It didn't end up costing them first place. I think this is going to be a war. It's going to be vicious. It's going to be very high scoring, and I would like to see it go the distance. And in a Game 7 scenario, I mean, they got to do it eventually, right? I'm going to pick the Leafs in 7. So now we got the Final Four, and we got to do borders and all that. We don't know what's going to happen there. And also, how does the Final Four work? Well, it's very simple. 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and it's based on points. In this scenario, Colorado, first in the league. The Hurricanes are third in the league. The Leafs are 5th, and the Penguins are 6th. So it'll be Colorado versus the Penguins, and the Leafs taking on the Hurricanes. Number 1, Colorado taking on number 4, Pittsburgh. The story writes itself. We've been talking all season about Sidney Crosby passing the baton to Connor. There's been so much talk for like a decade now of Sidney Crosby passing the baton. This is the battle for the Cole Harbor baton. Sidney Crosby versus Nathan MacKinnon. You know what? The sun has to set eventually on every dynasty. And we said that in 2016, and then the Penguins came back and won in 2017 as well. I think the Avalanche are so good. And if they had goaltending last year, who knows what would have happened. I think the Avalanche are so good. They're going to find a way to beat Pittsburgh, but it's going to be a 7-game classic. Then we have, I guess, the number 2 ranked Carolina Hurricanes taking on the number 3 ranked Toronto Maple Leafs. The Hurricanes get home ice advantage. This is a rematch of the 2002 Eastern Conference Finals. And Leaf fans, you might not like to hear this, but I think it's going to shake out roughly the same way. I think the Hurricanes, with home ice advantage, with the way that they're actually a really good matchup for the Leafs in the way that they play hockey. They're going to be the deepest team that the Leafs play throughout this route. I think the Hurricanes do end up taking this in 6 games. Which means, for the 2nd straight year now, I made my 2020 beginning of the season predictions well over a year ago. Some stuff got in the way in the world. I don't know if you noticed, but I predicted that it would be a Stanley Cup final between the Colorado Avalanche and the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, I ended up being wrong, but I think I might have just been a year late. The Avalanche are such a good team, and they've only gotten better since I said that. And the Hurricanes are such a good team, and they've only gotten better since I said that. And the one instruction that producer Drew, who is a known Colorado Avalanche fan, gave me before this video was, Steve, don't you dangle jinx the Avalanche by picking them to win the Stanley Cup. And luckily for you, I never listened to producer Drew. I have the Avalanche winning it. It's going to go 7. Nathan MacKinnon, he's going to be holding the Cole Harbor baton and the Stanley Cup, and he's going to like balance the Conn Smythe on his knee. How's that? Avs in 7. So, there are my playoff predictions for the 2021 Stanley Cup Playoffs. What do you got? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. It won't be my fault if the Avs lose. I mean, talk to Drew. Talk to Drew about that. Maybe he should have had more faith.